All right. Well, first off, let me say that I'm excited to be here and excited to participate in this. This is a pretty cool idea. And so thank you to Tony and Melinda and Vinny and everybody on the team for kind of creating this and house. This. But what I plan to kind of talk about today is what the recruiting, not so much the recruiting, the job search process is like in a COVID or a pandemic world. A lot of things have changed in the way that you search for a new opportunity, in the way that you apply for a new opportunity, and in the way that you kind of go about trying to find that next opportunity. So I'm going to kind of go through, what I consider what I encourage people to do from a process perspective to try and do this. And if any questions or wants me to expound on something or anything else, just go ahead and let me know and that. But otherwise, I'll just kind of start from the beginning and kind of talk through some things, and then just see where we go with it. So the first thing that I will say is that when looking for a new opportunity now, the market is completely different. The amount of candidates or other people looking for new jobs is at a level that's exponentially different than what we're used to, what companies are used to, what recruiters are used to, what HR departments are used to. And so what would normally be an organization looking to screen candidates in because they want to find the right candidate for the role, and so they're looking at resumes and trying to determine who best to talk to. It's changed a little bit to where first step of the process is they're trying to screen candidates out. And so what I mean by that is, and you may know this, you may not know this, but the first step when you apply to a role online, before your resume even gets in the hands of a human being, it's normally processed through an AI-driven, result engine. This is the easiest way to put it, where it's screened for what are the ideal criteria for that role. And those settings can be tweaked to be less general, more forgiving, I guess, for lack of a better term, or they can be very, very specific, what I call turned up. And so there's a smaller group of candidates that will make it through. And companies now have the settings turned up really, really high because they have to narrow the candidate pool. There are just too many people out there applying that there's no way to get through the volume. And so because of that, it used to be the case where if you submitted a resume, you could have one resume that sufficed for every position that you were applying for, because people would be willing to try and read between the lines and figure out exactly what is going on, figure out what your overall kind of width and breadth of experience is without it being clearly stated on, a resume. And that's not the case anymore. So the first thing that people have to kind of understand is, I know it's pretty tedious, and I know that it gets annoying, but resume customization and personalization for a specific job is incredibly important. And so, what I mean by that is, anytime you see a job description, they are going to have kind of must-haves or key responsibilities or some sort of criteria where they really define what the role is. Your resume has to reflect those key points, or you're going to be passed over. So if you see it on the job description and you've done it, that has to be a bullet point on your resume. Basically, what you're going to end up doing is swapping out bullet points. What worked for one position you looked at may not work for another. So you take one bullet point off, add a bullet point on that's specific, and you go through your resume trying to highlight as many of those bullet points as you can, because the closer you can get to the job description, the more chances you are the more chances you have to kind of make it through that first round of screening and actually get a human being to look at your resume. That's the traditional application process and what you have to do if you go down that road. Now, what I have been encouraging people to do for a long time now, and even more so, during what I'll call this, COVID era, is avoid just applying online. Don't do it unless you absolutely have to or you're told to. And here's what I mean by that. Instead of spending your time going through the upload of your resume and customization and everything else in that whole process, which can be pretty tedious, and doing that, 5, 10, 15, 20 times a day, every day, you burn out pretty quickly of having to go through the same process over and over and over again. What is even worse, the fact that you don't get any immediate feedback. Sometimes you don't get any feedback for days, weeks, it could be months. And so it becomes very disconcerting when you have what you consider, hey, I've got a lot of applications out there and I'm not hearing anything from anybody. And so I don't know what's wrong. Is it my resume? Is it the role itself? Well, I don't have any kind of information. And so what am I supposed to do? That's a tough spot to be in, especially when you're looking for a new opportunity. You want to hear something, you want to get some sort of feedback, and it's no fault of your own. A lot of time you're at the mercy of their system. You're at the mercy of an overloaded HR department who's trying to weed through all of these resumes. And I mean, there are horror stories about, what happens sometimes to people's resumes that they never even make it anywhere, that they're just automatically deleted because somebody was overworked and was behind. And so they've just decided, hey, any resume that came in on a Tuesday, guess what? I'm just going to delete them because I don't have time to go through them all. So all of those candidates gone. So, you don't know what is going on there. So it becomes very difficult to rely on that process to be effective. So what I encourage people to do is, for every hour that you're going to spend uploading your resume into a system, spend 2 to 3 times as much time working to build a network and find a personal connection inside that very company. There are strategies to do that, and I'll talk through those. But in this day and age, a personal connection, a personal recommendation, a personal referral, that is what's going to land you your next opportunity. One main reason because of that is, if I'm referring somebody to Tony versus that person coming in blind, Tony knows me. Tony knows that I'm not going to send a dud candidate his way. So if he's got to choose between who do I talk to next, I'm going to talk to the person who came from somebody I know. They're already vetted, in my mind. So that's a worthy conversation versus somebody that all I have is a resume in front of me. So those personal connections are incredibly important to be able to leverage, and building those kind of relationships worth the investment of time that it takes. So there's ways to go about this. The first thing that I say that people should do is make a list, 10 to 20 companies that are your targets. They're either the dream company that you want to work for, or you've seen a position posted where that's the role that I want, or it's close to something I want. The company's mission, is something that I can resonate, with. That position that they've got advertised is my dream job that I aspire to get to. Anything that kind of galvanizes that list to where it's like, okay, these are a list of companies that I'm going to work really, really hard to try and find a way in. Okay, so step 1 is you create that list. Step 2 is you start to do some research using, LinkedIn is a primary tool. It's a powerful tool. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you got to make yourself one. You've got to be active on LinkedIn. It's incredible. It is for all intents and purposes my database. I spend probably 70% of my time on LinkedIn, working to meet new people, schedule conversations, and help connect the dots. So, you know, LinkedIn strategy and everything else, that can be a whole nother topic of conversation, and I can go down a deep rabbit hole, but for this time here, I'm not going to do that. What you do with LinkedIn is you start to do some research. You pull the company up, start to look at the employees that are there. Try and find the person that you would technically be reporting to in that role. Once you find that person, start to work backwards from there. You Google their name, you check on Facebook, you check on, Twitter. You try and find anywhere where they might be that you can kind of work your way into, do I know somebody who knows that person? Because if you do, you leverage that connection to ask for an introduction, to ask for a recommendation, to do that and try and find that introduction. Now, once you get that introduction, the goal is not to pitch, hey, I need a job, please hire me. It's an opportunity for you to reach out to that person, try and engage them in an intelligent and thoughtful discussion around whatever topic that you feel very passionate about, that might be a common theme for them, so that they can get a feel for you and or your personality, your interests, and they start to subconsciously think about, how would this person be to work with in my organization? Could I work with them? Could I see them working on my team? Could I see them working for a peer of mine? Do they have, from a culture perspective, what it takes to survive and thrive here in that organization? That's the goal. You don't want to overtly pitch that you're looking for a new job. You want them come up with the idea that this is somebody that we need to hire. And the way that you're going to do that is by engaging them, taking an interest in them, showing them that you're diligent about, looking for information, trying to improve yourself, asking intelligent questions, engaging in thoughtful conversation, asking for help from them about ways that you could be better at who you are or what you do, how they got to where they are, any of that encourages kind of a back and forth dialogue and allows you to have, you don't want to cover all of that in one conversation, because chances are somebody who's just met you doesn't have the time to kind of go through all of that. But you want to do it in a way that allows you to go back to that person, ask questions, continue to engage. And then when the time is right, then you can kind of inquire about, hey, what's it like working for that company? Why do you like it there? What does your team makeup look like 6 months from now, a year from now? What are your thoughts around growth and opportunity and everything else? And then when they ask, well, why are you curious about that or whatever? Hey, based on what I've learned from you and I talking and everything else, I think it would be an interesting place to work, and I'd love the opportunity to talk about that. By this time, they've gotten to know you a little bit, and now you've expressed your interest. It's like, well, okay, yeah, let's find a way to have that conversation. Or, hey, I might have a position coming open on my team. Let's get you in our system, apply online or whatever. You can even say, hey, I've already applied to a couple roles. It makes their job easier, because it's like, okay, you're already in the system. Now I just have to talk to HR and tell them that I'm interested in bringing you in for a conversation and stuff. So you've backdoored the whole application process. Now you've got the opportunity to go further with that conversation. So you start to do that. You start to kind of build relationships. You tap people on the shoulder, asking for help. People are friendly, and people want to help. There are two things that people want to do, and it's kind of a innate, I think, the word I'm looking for, innate thing we all have as human beings. One, people want to help other people. And two, people like to talk about themselves. Those are two givens. So the more you can get somebody to talk about themselves, the more you're going to endear yourself to them. The more you can ask for help without being pushy or overt, the more people are going to want to help you. It's just human nature. That's how people are. So asking for books to read, blogs to read, video series to check out, you know, places to, take classes, what kind of classes you can take, any of those things that show that you're willing to kind of better yourself and want to be a better person and you're serious about your craft only makes you look better in somebody else's eyes and says, this is somebody who's serious about who they are and what they're trying to do. And those are the kind of people that we want to hire inside, that particular organization. Every organization is the same. They want to hire smart, motivated, passionate, good people. I mean, that's every hiring manager has that in mind. The technical stuff you can teach. The other stuff, it's just good people are good people. And how else are you going to figure out who a good person is? You don't ever talk to them. So, those conversations go both ways. So that's kind of the strategy to use when you're trying to get into a company directly or indirectly from a one-on-one basis or a, kind of a 2 degrees of separation basis. The other strategy that I encourage people to take is for everything in my the work that I do from a recruiting perspective is technology focused. And so there are a lot of user groups and communities, online communities that are dedicated to the various technologies and everything else. But I'm sure that that's like that for every industry. I'm sure there are user groups and everything else around what you're trying to do or the job that you've held or the job that you're trying to get. And so once you do some research and find those user groups, an easy way to meet a lot of people quickly, and a lot of people are scared to do this, but if you put yourself out there, it reaps a lot of benefits, because if you participate in a user group, and now they're very easy because they're all kind of online, nobody's really doing large gatherings and stuff like that, and so they're online and everybody's there, and can do that. But the easiest way to kind of get things going is to raise your hand and ask a question. Because one, shows that you're paying attention, you're engaged, and you're interested in the topic and or the technology or subject matter of the user group. Two, it allows you to then, you now have permission to engage either after the fact or down the road a little bit. Because one, they're going to answer your question. So, you may have a follow-up question, you may have multiple follow-up questions, but after the event is over, now you've got permission to reach out to them and say, hey, I was at your presentation. I really enjoyed it. I remember me. I'm the guy that asked the question. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, you were the guy who, asked me about X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Do you have a few minutes? Can we schedule some time? I've got a couple other questions that I think you might be able to answer. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. Most people, again, want to help. You've shown an interest in them. They're going to reciprocate. So they're going to set up some time to visit with you. So now you're building that relationship. Most people that do a lot of speaking, are known in the community for, where they're speaking. And so they've got a vast network. So now once you engage with that person, they're more than willing, most likely, to help you connect to other people in their network based on what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, what you're trying to accomplish. The other thing it allows you to do when you ask a question, now you've got an in with anybody else that attended the event. And I apologize, I talk with my hands. So if you but now you've got an opportunity to engage with the other attendees. You've seen their names. You can now try and Google their name, put their name into LinkedIn, see what they are, see what they do and who they work for and everything else. If it's on your target list of companies, now you have another point of connection. If it's somebody new that's doing something new and interesting, now you've got somebody new to meet. And you can reach out to them and leverage the fact that, hey, we were both at the user group meeting or the meetup, or we're in the discussion group or whatever. Remember, I'm the guy that asked the question about X, Y, and Z. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. And then you engage in a dialogue there and you follow that same process with that person. Once they get to know you a little bit, now you've got exposure to their network. And you keep doing this, and your network expands, your points of contact expand, and your ability to start to meet the people that you want to meet and engage with the people that you want to engage becomes easier to do, because now you've got people who are acting as references for you. There are no more cold calls anymore, cold reach outs, anything like that. You're coming recommended by somebody else, and it all stems from being vulnerable enough to raise your hand, ask a question, ask for help, and not completely be overbearing or just in your face with the, I'm looking for a job, I need a job, hire me now, that type thing. Because those messages don't work. Nobody wants that message. Nobody's going to respond to that message. Nobody has time for that. But people are genuinely interested in helping other people. And so being able to network effectively, being able to, be humble and be willing to kind of, be vulnerable in the fact that you're kind of putting yourself out there, is a great way to endear yourself and start to build your network. The third thing in the third strategy is around, content creation and online engagement. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all of these things are great ways to participate in discussions and engage in discussions and meet new people. And another easy way to do that is to either create content on your own. Video content is great if you're not comfortable with video, but you enjoy writing. Write a blog post. Find an article that you find interesting and post it on LinkedIn and talk about why you find it interesting and why you thought you share it with, the LinkedIn community by and large. People will like it. People will comment on it. As soon as that happens, your network expands, because now you've got somebody who's commented on that you may or may not know. Now you can reach out to them, engage them, respond to their comment, and strike up a conversation. Once you like something on LinkedIn, if I like something on LinkedIn, Tony, if he's following me and he and I are connected and things are set up, he'll get a notification that I liked a particular post or I commented on a particular article. So now, hey, that's curious. What did he comment on? Now eyeballs are on your article that you posted, and now you've got a bunch of eyeballs looking at this. So again, it extrapolates out. It starts to kind of build some momentum, and it all comes from you putting something out there that you found intriguing and interesting and letting people engage with you in that regard. It also works same way when you see content from other people. There are people that are on your target list. When you made the target list of the companies and you found who might your boss be, and you look at and you follow them on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, and they start putting content out there, start replying, you start retweeting, you start making comments and engaging in conversation. Pretty soon they get to know you, their network gets to know you, and again, the network effect starts to come into play. And all this time, you're building connections, you're letting people see who you are, and natural occurrence that momentum will start to build in your direction with regards to looking for a new opportunity or trying to meet some new people and everything else. But it all starts with the first step, which is putting yourself out there and kind of reaching out and trying to do some of these things that will allow that to happen. Now I can go in greater detail on some of this. I know we've got some folks here in the session. I know some folks kind of came in late. Anybody have any questions? Do you need me to stop on anything or dive deeper on anything? I'm happy to do that. And I finally get to. I've always wanted to say this, Bueller.
I was just thinking what you said has been very confirming to me because it's the way that I've been approaching this for a long time.
I mean, it is. I mean, and to some people, it's a natural way of doing things because they, they kind of understand. Some people, it's completely unnatural. Some people are just so used to, from the job search perspective, you're just taught, well, you find the role and you apply to the role and you wait to hear back. And when you do, you go through the interview process and it is what it is. And, yeah, to a certain extent, that is true. But times have changed, technology has changed, and it's becoming less humanizing on the front end. And us as human beings want to interact with people we know and we like. And so everybody is trying to find a way to rehumanize process that has been deep. I mean, I will argue that, everybody thinks that artificial intelligence and, machine learning and everything else is going to take human element out of so many things that it's going to take over the world, and pretty soon everything is going to be run by bots and machines and everything else. And I submit that that's not the case. That you're going to end up you're going to end up requiring or wanting it to be more human. Like AI and everything else is a great tool to present information, but it doesn't take the human element out of everything. And now I've got a question from Eileen, who said, I have done informational interviews with people in the types of positions I'm interested in. I invite them for coffee. That is absolutely the right way to approach it. Coffee is a great way to have those kind of conversations where it's disarming. You get to know somebody, you get to kind of experience things in a less formal way. And that's really and truly what you want. I'm a huge believer in the coffee meeting. In fact, I get in trouble sometimes at the office because got the ability to post people in our office, and instead I choose not to bring them to the office because I don't want any interview to feel so formal that people feel like they can't be themselves. Because what everybody is trying to figure out when they're engaging in these types of conversations is who are you, the person? And are you the person, the type of person that I would like to work with and enjoy working with long term? Not what is that persona in the interview setting where a lot of people are more buttoned up and everything else. And COVID now makes it a lot harder to kind of meet. But I mean, there is virtual coffee. I mean, there's virtual happy hour, there's virtual coffee, there's virtual lunch and learn. You can thing virtually now. In fact, that's one of I use a scheduling tool to schedule my appointments, and it's just a link that people can click and can kind of click what kind of engagement they want. And one of the choices is a virtual coffee. And we'll just jump on Zoom or FaceTime or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or whatever conferencing, video conferencing tool there is. And I'll grab a cup of coffee or a Gatorade, and you grab a cup of coffee and a Gatorade, and we'll sit there and we'll have a chat and we'll talk about things and everything else. And it same kind of thing because we're engaging and we know that it's in a casual setting where the conversation is less formal than saying, okay, let's set up a video interview and I'm going to sit in the conference room in my office and you're going to dress up in a suit and tie or a business suit and a blouse, and we're going to go there and we're just going to kind of make it feel stuffy and uncomfortable. That's not the way to do things. And I think that's the one good thing about COVID, that it's allowed for a lot more freedom around those kind of conversations where people realize, hey, I'm at my house, kids are screaming in the background, my dogs are barking, the doorbell's ringing, the baby's crying, whatever it is, and they see you as a human being. and they realize, hey, he or she puts their pants on in the morning just like I do. That we're all dealing with the same things. We're all struggling with the same things. And so the video communication tools now have really allowed things to be a lot more human, which we have to look for a positive when it comes to, COVID. I guess that can be one, is that it's allowed for stuff like that to happen, a lot of organic kind of communication in the back and forth versus, a lot of formality. You got to take advantage of it. And that's the other thing is, you've got to kind of be willing to reach out and be willing to kind of participate and engage, because if not, it's a two-way street. You can't reach out to you, and do a lot of that. I mean, guys like me, that's what we do every day. That's what I do. But your target employers, your hiring managers and everything else, you got to put forth some effort into trying to get to know them and trying to connect with them, because, a lot of, depending on what role you're looking for, folks don't have the time. I mean, they're buried in the work that they're doing, that out to other people.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. For
Yay,
sure.
my mic is working finally. Thank you for that, Chris. I've noticed that a lot of people tend to not respond on LinkedIn, even people I've known for years. I mean, a lot of people don't seem to really use it as much as you would think.
Here's the other kind of not known secret, around LinkedIn, and one of the detriments to it is because the LinkedIn inbox, if you don't have settings tweaked correctly, it stays in the LinkedIn platform, the inbox in the platform. Now you can, where it alerts you via email that you've got a message in your LinkedIn inbox, or it alerts you via text message. You got a message in your LinkedIn inbox that encourages you to check it. But it's a closed ecosystem from a form of communication. And so a lot of times, when you reach out to people, it doesn't, it takes a while for them to get back, because it's like, oh crap, I haven't been on LinkedIn in a couple of weeks, or my inbox on LinkedIn is so full of everything, I haven't been able to kind of, go through the queue and connect with people. One thing that I would encourage you to do when you're reaching out to people is, instead of sending them kind of an in-mail, when you're reaching out to connect, gives you an option to send a customized message before you just hit the connect button. And that's when you can type something in to say, hey, I'm interested in connecting. Here's why. I heard you talk. I'm interested in what you do. Whatever the message is that you want to provide, you can do that now without having to send a specific, what LinkedIn has is their own form of email. And a lot of times now, I'm not even sure how many emails you get before you have to pay for a premium version of it to have access to that. There's another way that you can get in touch with somebody, because and there's an easy way to find out people's email address if you want to message them at their office. Once you go on LinkedIn, you find out where it is that they work. The way to do it is, then you go to Google, and in parentheses you put, start of the parentheses, the @ and the domain name of the company, close parentheses, and hit enter. What'll happen is you'll get a bunch of what looks like gobbledygook, that comes through on your Google search, and you'll be like, what is all this information? What does this even mean? Start to do, and it's usually within the first 2 or 3 pages, you'll find it. Start to scroll through, you'll see where somebody, has their email address listed because they're a point of contact somewhere, or they've reached out to somebody, and they've used their corporate email as the point of contact. And once you see that one person's email, the format is there. And so there's probably a 95% chance that if, you know, Joe Smith at XYZ company email address was joe.smith at XYZ company, then the person that you want to talk to is going to be, you know, chris.spintzyk at XYZ company. And so now you've got a way to reach out to them and send a message to their office. It's non-intrusive. Again, you're not, you know, trying to cram your resume down your throat. You're not trying to pitch them to hire you or anything else. You're just making an inquiry. And that's an easy way to bypass the whole LinkedIn system and not have to rely on the LinkedIn inbox as the only way to get in touch with somebody. This way, you're going to a medium that you know they're engaged in pretty regularly. I mean, everybody's checking their work email almost all the time. And so you've got a better shot of approaching somebody directly sometimes than you do just trying to leverage the LinkedIn, you know, mail function.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on LinkedIn for many years, and I always customize my messages, but a lot of times, like you said, they just don't even respond, maybe because their inboxes are overflowing. But yeah, it is a good idea to go to the company website and try to contact them there. I think I'm going to try to do more of that.
Yeah, I mean, because again, you know, people are getting bombarded. I mean, and that's the other, you know, that's the beauty of social media now too, is there are so many places where people are that if you start to kind of do some due diligence, you'll see, you know, are they on Twitter? Are they on Facebook? Are they on a specific kind of, you know, Slack is big now, and there are lots of Slack channels dedicated to, you know, subject matter or technology or, you know, job titles or whatever it is. There's discussion channels and Slack channels that you can do that, and you can sign up, you know, for Slack for free and participate in these once you do a search. Then you do the same thing. I mean, it's like instant messenger. You know, if you've never used Slack before, I mean, it's a great form of communication because you can participate in discussions, you can reach out to people directly. You know, you can do research on who they are based on some of the conversations they're participating in, saying, oh, wow, that guy or lady sounds really, really interesting based upon what they're talking about. I want to find out who they are because they're somebody I'd be interested in. You know, you do a little bit of due diligence, you track them down, and then you use the same methodology and the same format again and create a new point of contact, a new friend, you know, a new way to network, and you just kind of, it's almost like, you know, wash, rinse, repeat. You know, you can continue to do that. I spend a good portion of my day is spent doing exactly that, trying to engage with new people whose backgrounds I find interesting and, you know, who I want to kind of talk to and meet. So, you know, I follow my own, you know, method, you know, every day.
Mm-hmm. My challenge is that I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, and so I've been in and out of the workforce a lot. And even though I have really solid skills, even like language skills that are in high demand, they see that, you know, spotted jumping from one company to another thing, not intentionally, just the way things worked out. And so I think that might be part that's always been a hard sell if you don't have a consistent you know, employment history. That
is if you are going through the traditional channels. You know, if you're going and your resume is in front of somebody from HR and everything else, that's where a lot of that pushback will come from, because that's part of their role is to try and screen in and out and everything else. But if you're engaging in other people where you can kind of tell your story about what it is that you've done and why you moved from place to place. I mean, it was family taking care of kids, or you had some other family issues, or the company went through a riff, or the company went out of business. I mean, a lot of those things are no fault of your own until you have the chance to explain that to somebody. Nobody knows that, and so the more you have, you know, where you can kind of tell your story, the better off it is. And that's why the whole application process is so tedious, and why a lot of times you don't get a lot of action from it, is because the system is rigged to penalize you for those things and shouldn't be penalized for those. You shouldn't be penalized for taking care of your family. You shouldn't be penalized because the company you were with laid off half of its workforce. That's not your fault. That you shouldn't be that, but because that information isn't readily available, and because again you're dealing with machines, they're not making interpretations, or they're not trying to figure it out or read between the lines. They're just saying, nope, work history inconsistent, pass, and you don't ever get the chance. That's why working the network is such an important piece to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else? Questions, thoughts? You'd like to hear more about?
Now, what's your music background?
My music background? I don't have one.
Oh, okay.
I wish. I wish I did. No. I'm just I'm a headhunter, and so that's I recruit technology executives.
Mm-hmm.
That's
sounds interesting.
all this. I wish I had a music background. In fact, if I had my dream, and I really enjoy what I do, but if I was going to be doing something different, I'd love to be a music manager. I think that would be so much fun to kind of represent, kind of do that. I've got a couple friends who do that, and so, but I can't play an instrument. I think I can sing great. My wife, who's classically trained as a singer, begs to differ, and so I'm not going to be releasing any albums anytime soon. And so yeah, my music background is more as a fan than anything else.
I could see you as a DJ. You'd be a great DJ.
Oh, that would be fun. Travel the world to do that, or just be on radio.
Yeah, I think you'd be really good at it.
I've had people tell me that I should have majored. My degree is in business communication, and they said that I should have taken the track that would have done, put me down kind of the radio personality track versus the business track. And there's sometimes when I kick myself for not doing it, because that would be really, really.
Not too late. You can always do it on the side.
Yeah, and I've always too wanted to do kind of the voiceovers and stuff like that. I've had a friend of mine who did the voiceovers for News Channel 5, and he always talked about kind of the stuff that he did and everything else. And I said, that wouldn't be so bad. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
So who knows? Maybe I'll have a change in career, and you may hear me on the radio waves, or doing a podcast or something like that where I get to travel around and interview people. That would be awesome.
We need to talk later.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Anything you need to do or anything that I can help with, I'm happy to do it. I really appreciate you thinking of me and allowing me to do this. This is fun.